What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Fatboyz Dynasty Podcast presented by the FantasyHolics Podcast Network, coming at you live on the X and the YouTube channel of the FantasyHolics. I'm Bo. That is Brant. Brant coming at you with our first of many prospect episodes, if you will. We're going to talk about some of our favorite, favorite casts of the prospects, of the draft season, and guys that we're really ready to start planting our flags on a little bit, and just guys that we're excited about for next year. So I know that's what we're going with today, but I want to catch you off guard a little bit here and start you off with, what are your thoughts on Tyreek Hill? Is there a chance to save grace in his career yet, or is he done?
I don't think he's done. I think the best two spots would be either back home with Kansas City or with the Buffalo Bills. I think he would be a number one receiver for Josh Allen. And could you imagine the deep ball of Josh Allen if Tyreek Hill even comes back 75-80% of what his speed was prior to being injured? I don't think he's done. I don't think you're going to see him producing at a top 10, top 5 finishes. I do think there's still some value, but it has to be in the landing spot. If he ends up in Tennessee, we all have seen that's not great for veteran wide receivers. But I don't think his career is done. It's going to be all about landing spot. I think he has to get back with a quarterback that is a lot better than what Tua was capable of consistently.
Yeah, and that's the problem, Brant, is Tua wasn't consistent. There were some great flashes for Tyreek, and then there was some really, really woeful times for Tyreek in Miami. I do think Tyreek's good enough still at 31 years of age and what he potentially brings to the table, that there's still some value left if he goes someplace, like you said. I just think strong quarterback play is going to have to be a certainty there. Obviously, the Josh Allen thing fits. If George Pickens were to somehow leave Dallas, I would love to see Tyreek in Dallas. Obviously, I think there's going to be a lot of connections pointing him back home to Kansas City to reunite with Patrick Mahomes, who it now sounds like he's not going to miss a bunch of time. They restructured his contract. So I think it all roads point to Tyreek going someplace with a good quarterback again. I do think I lend caution, Brant. I think as a Tyreek owner in one of my more important dynasty leagues, I'm trading him as soon as there's any kind of smoke behind his name that somebody else might be interested in. I'll probably sell low on it just to get out from under it.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't blame you on that one either. As a Tyreek owner as well, in one of our leagues, I definitely would be willing to ship him for a fairly low cost.
Yep, absolutely. All right, Brant, let's get into these prospects for this year. Why don't you take us off with your first one?
I'm going to start with the running back position. I got Jonah Coleman out of Washington. He's 5'9", 228 pounds, senior running back, like I said, out of Washington. He's a dual threat running back. He does pretty good in the passing and also in the rushing games. I'm going to start with the weakness. Everybody wants to start with strengths. I'm going to start with his weakness. His top end speed is going to limit him to a lot of not able to cap off those big plays. He needs to work on his pass protection as well. He has good hands out in the pass game, but he does not block all that great. And he also is very limited in his route tree as well. He'll have to get that up to speed at the pro game. And then his strength, he only had one fumble in his collegiate career. And I don't even think it was lost. I just think he fumbled the ball once in his whole career. And that was 552 carries. I'll go over a few more stats in his whole career here in just a minute. So he does not drop the ball. He does not fumble the ball. He has good patience in run zone schemes. He will sit behind the line and wait for the blocks to develop and then burst out. He's very low to the ground. He's going to be hard to bring down on just small arm tackles and shoelace tackles. You're going to have to square up with this guy. He had 552 carries, 3,054 yards. He had 87 catches for another 830 yards and 37 total touchdowns in his career. He played both Arizona and Washington. He did have a 4-year career. I think this is a guy that's going to end up late in the draft, and I think he's going to be a nice change of pace back for some of these teams and be able to get in day 2, day 3. And I think he'll be fantasy relevant about midway through the season. I don't think he's going to get out there, barring an injury. I don't think he's going to get out there and wow people right off the rip. But I do think that this is going to be a guy that people are going to forget about, and in redraft leagues, they'll be scrambling the waiver wires about halfway through the year.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, I knew that you were either going to go one or two ways when you talked about a running back today. It was either going to be the guy from Washington or Notre Dame. So I'm sure there's enough people talking about the main guy from Notre Dame, although I imagine we talk about his running mate at some point in the offseason. But I knew you were going one of two ways before we talked about it.
I almost went with Washington for both of my prospects, but I chose to go a little different route.
Right. I do want to say, too, as I'm getting ready to start talking about my guys, I'm going running backs for both of mine, Brant. And I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm sure you have some too that you can think of from last year. But I just want to say, as Brant and I start going through these prospects, I probably should have let into this before we jumped into your first one. We hit on a decent amount. We missed on a decent amount. Last year, I was gung-ho all over Caleb Johnson. Jury's still out. Didn't look great last year. Another guy that I was really in on later in the draft process prior to the NFL draft was RJ Harvey on my last-minute guys that I talked about. That's a guy that I really fell in love with down the stretch and ended up hitting and working out very well in his rookie year. So I'm going to talk about two running backs that I really think have upside similar to RJ Harvey. Neither one of these guys are going to be drafted as early as Caleb Johnson was, in my opinion. Obviously, it's a little bit of a running back barren class, so it's subject to change. But first one I'm going to talk about is a guy that I think kind of fell from grace a little bit. That's Nick Singleton out of Penn State. There was a lot of hype around him early in his career. Definitely had a little fall from grace. Split carries this year as a senior. He is 6 foot tall, 220 pounds. Did get hurt in the senior day, senior bowl stuff. Should be fine for training camp from what I'm reading. So I'm going to talk about some pros and stuff with this guy first, and then I'll talk about his stats and some other stuff. But home run ability, his breakaway speed stands out. His cuts and his balance are amazing when he's in a little bit of a congested box. The way he makes guys miss, I'm never going to go so far as to say it seems like Bijan, because there's one man on the planet that does Bijan things. But this guy has very, very good cuts. And he's usually one cut explode. It's not dance forever and end up, with a loss of yards or whatever. Just very explosive after his cut. And again, that contact balance is very, very electric for him. He's not a guy who's going to get taken down by a lot of DBs hitting, his hips or whatever as he's running. Another good thing that I think will bode well for him as an NFL player is he's very patient. He waits for his holes to develop in front of him. He lets his linemen do lineman things, and then he hits the appropriate hole and picks up what he can pick up. With that being said, he's also a very good pass blocker out of the backfield. So I think there's a chance that this guy could step into a 3-down role in the NFL early if he goes to the right spot. One minor concern is his pass catching sample size is kind of all over the place in college. One year he was pretty involved in the pass catching. The next year he was not at all. So I think that's one thing that we're going to have to keep an eye on with his landing spot. 622 carries, 3,461 yards rushing at Penn State, 5.6 yards per carry, 45 rushing touchdowns. As far as the receiving end of it goes, 102 total receptions and 4 yards, 987 total yards, 9 touchdowns. So again, there is some work there. But like I said, it was kind of up and down. 11 receptions as a freshman, 26, 41 as a junior, way down to 24 this year. I know he split time in the backfield. And that probably plays a factor into it. But I do think that that's going to be his one thing that holds him back a little bit. On his best day, he's a Jonathan Taylor type player. On his best day. On his worst day, Miles Sanders. So two big drastic swings there. One that I saw a lot that I liked for him that I won't say myself just because of this man's recent success, but there is some comps comparing him to Kenneth Walker already. Obviously, Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker, that'd be a pretty good pro comp to have. So I do think Nick Singleton, if he falls to the right spot where the running back room's maybe shaky or there's aging vets, like if he goes to a Minnesota with an Aaron Jones or something, this could be a guy that we're talking about wanting to own a lot of stock of in fantasy.
This is a guy that I've labeled when he got hurt. I put a label on him in my notes as one of the steals of the draft for a team and fantasy, because like you said, he did get hurt in senior day. It's going to take some time to rehab. A lot of teams start to overlook that and forget about guys like that when it comes to the draft. I think this guy's going to be a steal. And I think he's going to get slowly worked into a good position for him, like you said, in a backfield that could have some aging vets or guys that are on expiring contracts. I would love to see Seattle be able to get him in day 2, day 3 if Kenneth Walker ends up walking to be a running mate to Charbonnet. I wouldn't be against seeing that. I do like this guy, and I do think that he'll be a steal over the draft. And like I said, both regular and fantasy.
Okay, all right.
All right, so I'm going to talk about a guy from USC, wide receiver, 6'4", 200 pounds. Not the wide receiver from USC everyone probably thinks I'm talking about. I'm going to go with Jacoby Lane. I'm going to go with the ex-wide receiver there. He does have a smaller frame. We're going to talk about his weaknesses first, like I did last time. Smaller frame. He's listed anywhere from like 194 to 200. It depends on where you look and everything else, and I guess what he ate that morning when he weighs in. He does have a smaller frame. We have seen that be able to work in the NFL as well. And his route tree is a little questionable, as he was only asked to run really hitches and fades and clearing routes at USC. So he didn't have a whole lot. So that's probably going to need a little bit of work in the NFL to get to that pro caliber route tree. But his run blocking also needs a little bit of work. It's not the greatest, but his strengths are, he's got a long wingspan. He wins contested catches. He'll go up and high point the ball at every chance he gets. And he always seems to find that soft spot against man or zone. He always seems to be able to find that open area down the field. So I think that's going to be great for NFL teams. In his career, he had 99 catches, 1,363 yards, and 18 touchdowns. I think that this guy's going to be a great wide receiver 2 on a team. Right off the rip, I think he'll fill in a nice role for a team that does have that solidified wide receiver 1, and they're looking for a guy that can really clear the field as well. And obviously we'll have some more speed stats and everything else after the combine goes on. But this is a guy that looks to be having the speed out there on the field and looks to find the open area, and he'll be a good fit for a wide receiver 2 in most offenses.
Yeah, so I will say the size is alarming. I think it was kind of dispelled for a little while with Devonta Smith, but then you see a guy like Tank Dell take some hits, and Tank Dell was really promising, and all of a sudden it's like, is Tank Dell ever going to be good at football again? So I am nervous, to say the least, when it comes to him. I think, again, it's going to be very determinant on where he's drafted to and what that looks like. I don't know as though I'd be really interested in him in fantasy if I knew he was going to be out for 70 offensive snaps a week. I think this is a guy that's going to have to play like 35, 40 offensive snaps. Pick your times for him. It does worry me. Like you alluded, he's insanely quick. So maybe that helps him a little bit. Maybe he can go, study with Tyler Lockett for a few weeks. That would definitely alleviate some of my concerns. But I am a little nervous after, the Tank Dell experience. Obviously that's not necessarily done and over with, but at this point, but it definitely was scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I'm getting into another running back. This was a very deep dive for me. This is a guy that, admittedly so, I enjoyed playing with on college football on the old PlayStation several times, and this is a school I feel like a lot of other people use as well. It's Robert Henry Jr. out of the University of Texas, San Antonio, the Roadrunners down there. He is another guy that is – he's going to be quick. He's going to be fast. Another very home run hitting type of running back. He is 5'9", 205 pounds, so a little bit on the smaller side, but we've seen that work out from the running back position as far as height. The weight's good. We don't want to see a running back under 200 pounds. This is a guy that in his career, in 3 years at the University of Texas, San Antonio, 408 carries, 2,339 yards, 5.7 yards per carry, 27 touchdowns, so averaged 9 a year. And then he is pretty polished as a pass catcher, 58 receptions, 428 yards receiving to go along with 3 touchdowns. Again, home run upside with this guy. He, at his size, and it's probably because of how short he is very, very elusive between the tackles, but he also has really, really quick speed to get out to the boundaries and take that game as well. I don't see him necessarily being a 3-down back in the NFL. I see him being a very nice complementary piece to maybe, again, another type of back that also isn't going to be on the field for, 3 downs all the time. He is, again, very, in my opinion, accomplished as a wide receiver. The comp's a little less attractive on this one, Brant. It's Raheem Mostert. But again, Raheem Mostert was a guy that won a lot of fantasy games for a few years. So if you were a Raheem Mostert owner, you probably would be very interested in Robert Henry Jr. Again, a lot of these guys are going to be dependent on landing spots and where they end up going in the draft and what the draft capital looks like. But I do think with this class, we've been scared on this class for so long, and everybody's coming out saying, this is a terrible class, trade your picks for next year. I do think there's going to be some value in this class. There are going to be guys that come out in this year's draft that are going to be very fantasy relevant for several years. And I do think that running back class is actually a little bit deeper than people are making it out to be. I think Brant and I will obviously do some more deep dives, and we'll do our, top 10 rookie running backs at some point in the near future. But I'm actually pretty excited about this running back class.
Yeah, this guy, he screams, San Francisco or Miami with the speed and the home run ability, and don't have to be out there as many times. He screams that's the type of fit that he would be. Obviously, you still have CMC there, and every single running back that San Francisco's drafted over the last 4 years or still seem to be sitting there. But yeah, he's a guy that's going to have that home run ability, and maybe he only sees 7 carries a game, but next thing you know, he's dropping you 20 fantasy points because he's got 2 touchdowns in that game.
Mm-hmm. You never know.
Yep.
It'll be one of those things. Again, I think landing spot's going to make a big difference if he goes someplace where there's an aging back that he can find some clear path to work. I think that he'll have a chance, but it's not going to be something that we're going to be coming out of the NFL draft going, yeah, he's the one and number one of that backfield.
Yeah, absolutely. You got something?
Yeah, I was going to say next week there's a chance we'll have some franchise tags to start talking about as that time is open. But I imagine we'll come back with some more prospects next week and just touch base on any other pertinent information as it becomes available. We are getting ever so close. We've only got a little over, or I guess counting today, 10 days left of February. So we will be moving very quickly once March hits into dominoes starting to fall. Free agency will hit hard, and then all of a sudden we're right on the precipice of the NFL draft. So definitely start getting ready for that content, guys. It's time to start doing your research. Yeah,
it's absolutely. This is where you separate from your league mates in Dynasty, is when you start a little bit earlier and you get these names and you start looking at them a little deeper. This is where the separation is, even in redrafts, because you can always take the steal late in the draft. Everyone says take your dart throws at the end of the draft. Well, these are the guys that you need to look at. As we move forward, we'll hit you with more. You hit on some names that we hit last year. Harold Fannon's one name that I put out at the beginning of offseason, and he had a great rookie year. I'd have to go back through my notes on probably all my misses because that was probably the only one that I did hit. But I will say, normally the first name I come out with has done pretty decent. So hopefully I can keep that trend over years to come. I think that does it for us tonight. And as always, stay hungry.
And stay fat, my friends.